Hi everybody, how are you? So today, sadly, is my last cooking video, but don't fret because all of the cooking videos that either I've done or any of the other staff members have done are all on the Oasis Longcross YouTube channel. So if you need anything during lockdown and you're looking for an activity to do, there are so many things on there that you can use. So today I decided, we always know this is a bit of a dodgy decision, isn't it, when I make a choice about what we're going to cook. I've decided to do a quiche. So just a simple cheese and onion quiche. What I did was cheat a little bit and I bought roll-out pastry that's already made. So it saved me a little bit of a job. Now there is a recipe on here somewhere for shortcrust pastry. I think it's under cowboy pies or pirate pot pies that has a recipe for shortcrust pastry. So if you want to make your own, that would be a good video to look at first. So what we're going to start with, now because it's a quiche, we need a bit of a pastry base, as you've already seen. Now a quiche dish looks a little bit different. Can you see these wavy edges? So that's normally what you would cook a quiche in. So when I rolled out the pastry, it wasn't quite wide enough to fit in the dish. So what I did was cut a couple of strips off the end and add them on the sides. So now it's more of a square shape and hopefully I'll be able to get it in the pastry dish. So let me turn this down and you can have a little look at what we're going to do. So we need to go really carefully when we lift this. Now the beauty of the pre-cut pastry is that it is already on some baking paper. So it's much easier to do this bit. So I've rolled it out and all I'm going to do is just very gently ease it into the pie dish like you've already seen. Like this. And what we want it to do is to go into all the edges. We don't want a bit of quiche without a pie crust. So I'm just going to remove the paper because that would not be good to cook. And we're going to do this cooking video in a few different sections because what we need to do first, now the first thing I need to do is pop this into the pie dish. And then what I'm going to do is go around the edges and squeeze the pastry crust that's around the edges. Sorry, the washing machine is on, so it's going to make a funny noise in the background. So we're going to squeeze this into the edges. Now, there's always good use for a bit of flour. What I don't want is for the pastry to get stuck to my fingers. And we're just going to push it around the sides to make sure that every edge has got some pastry on it and that the bottom of the dish is covered. And then we're going to get a little knife and we're just going to cut around the edges, which should hopefully get rid of all the excess pastry that we don't need. Now, your parents or your grandparents, whoever you may choose to do this with, may know a slightly better way of doing this. I have to admit, I've actually never made a quiche before, although I really love to eat them. So we're just going to cut the pastry from around the edges. And then what we're going to do is, we've done it once before, we did it with the pirate pot pies. What we're going to do is we're going to blind bake the pastry. So that is where we pop it in the oven with nothing in it. We just bake it for a few minutes to make sure that the pastry is cooked on the bottom. What we said before is we don't want any soggy bottoms. So when we cook a quiche and we cut down through to make a slice, we want a nice crusty base. We don't want something that's all soggy and falls apart. So there's the dough I don't need. I'm just going to give a gentle little pinch around the top to make sure that what I've cut off stays stuck to the dish. Now I've preheated the oven. We're getting quite used to this now. See if you can guess. You've got it. 180 degrees. I'm not going to talk while the washing machine's doing its job. Noisy, isn't it? Goodness gracious. And then once you've got it round the edges and you know that it's all where it needs to be, so I'm going to give it a bit of a press down. What we're going to do, this little sneaky trick, is put some fork holes. Go very gentle because obviously you're putting it into, well, it depends what dish you put it into. I'm putting mine onto a glass dish, so I want to make sure that I don't damage the glass as I'm doing this. And when we do this, it's to help the air so it doesn't bubble on the bottom. The air's got space to pop up through the holes. It won't make a problem when you pour the filling in. There we go. All right, and we're going to pop that in the oven for about 5 to 10 minutes, just until you can start to see that it's starting to cook. Once it comes out the oven, then I'll come back to you. Let me put this up. I'll come back to you and we'll do the filling and then we'll cook the final result. How exciting. See you in a moment. Ta-da! So they have come out. They were in for roughly, well, the one that I put in was in for about 10 minutes. I then made 2 other little ones because I didn't want to waste the pastry. So those were only in for about 7 minutes. So what we're going to do now I quite like to fry my onions off before I add them. So we're going to add, shall I show you? I normally show you, don't I? How silly. I'm a bit cloud cookie land today. Let's turn this down. Here we are. So we're going to need 6 eggs. Now, because I have made an extra 1, I'm going to add another egg. So you only add 6 eggs. I'm going to add 7. I always like to add just a little tiny teaspoon of mustard. If you don't like that, don't put it in. And I always like to add a little bit of Philadelphia, which thickens up the mixture a little bit. So I'm going to add that, but again, don't add it in if you don't like it. I've also got some milk. I'm going to use some milk, and we're going to need cheese and onions because we're going to make a cheese and onion quiche. So as I was saying, I like to fry my onions off first because it gives them a little bit of extra flavour. So what I did was I added in just a little bit of butter, and then I fried some normal brown onions in the butter. And then when they were cooked, I just cut up some little spring onions, you know, the ones with the green bits on the end. I cut some of those up and I sprinkled those on top. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make the mixture that we put on top. So we need 6 eggs. This is 1 and 2. Now I'm using large eggs because I want to make sure I've got enough to fill the quiche dish. So there's 3. There's 4. Remembering to go really careful not to let any shell get in the mixture. And if you happen to get some shell in the mixture, which I just have, remember what I said to you about using the eggshell to get it out because it's magnetic, so it sticks to it. Much easier than trying to chase it around the bowl with a spoon. That won't work. Right, let's get that bit in. And I'm pretty certain I also got another bit of eggshell in there. That wasn't very clever of me, was it? So it's much, much easier, excuse me, to get it out with the eggshell. There we go. That's that done. And that was lucky because I didn't actually spill the eggs in. Now what I'm going to do now is add in 1 extra egg, which like I said to you, you don't need to do. But I'm going to because I've got 2 other little pies, quiches here that I want to make sure I've got enough filling for. Right, that's that. Now what we are going to need is a whisk because we're going to have to whisk this mixture up so that it's all combined. So I'm going to choose now to whisk up the eggs. Remember, you have to go very careful. You don't want it to come out the bowl. It's just tiny little whisk movements with your whisk. Go round and round and round and round and round and round. There we go. Now we need 3/4 of a cup. Again, excuse me, if you need to convert that to millilitres, put it into your computer. So into the computer, put 3/4 of a cup and then convert, C-O-N-V-E-R-T, ml, which is millilitres. I'm lucky I've got these little cup measurements. So I know I'm going to need 3 of these. Now we fill them right up to the top. There's 1. Fill it up to the top. There's 2. fill it up to the top. There's 3. So that's my milk gone in. And then I'm just trying to put the lid back on, and it's gone a little bit wonky donk. And then what we're going to add is a teaspoon. I did get a teaspoon out somewhere. I don't know what I've done with it. I'll find it. Let's get another one. So we're going to add a teaspoon. That's the small one that you might see your parents mixing coffee or tea with. So we're just going to put a small little teaspoon of that in, because that just gives it a little bit of added flavour. But like I said, if you don't need it, if you don't like it, don't use it. It isn't needed. Let's get those bits off. That is my mustard. And then we're going to add a generous dollop, is how I'm going to describe this. What that looks like to you, I don't know. I'm going to use probably about 1/3 of a Philadelphia pack. And what you'll find is that will help to just make the mixture a little bit creamier, which is sometimes a really good thing when you make a quiche. There we go. So that's that done. And then we're going to give it a good old whisk. Now you can choose to add your salt and pepper in now. I might do that, and then when I whisk it, it'll go better. So we're going to add a generous, it would be a pinch normally, but I'm grinding it. So we're going to add some pepper, and we're going to add some salt. Again, you don't want too much, otherwise it doesn't taste particularly nice if you add too much in. And then very carefully, because we've got that great big dollop of cream cheese in there, we're just going to give it all a whisk around. Now it's really important, if you're adding in the cream cheese and you're adding in the mustard, it's really important to whisk it in well. What you don't want is a slice of quiche that is just one thick dollop of cheese or mustard. As we whisk that up, you can see that the colour has changed slightly, so that tells me that most of it's mixed in nicely. And give it a little bit of an extra whisk just to be safe. The black bits you see floating are the pepper that I've just put in, not a dead fly, which would be absolutely disgusting. Okay, and then the best bit, putting it all together. Now, as always, please make sure you've got a grown-up to help you. There's the teaspoon, it was hiding underneath. Please make sure you've got a grown-up to help you, and I hope that you've all washed your hands, because I did. And what we're going to do now, remembering this has just come out the oven, so it is still a bit hot. So please go very, very careful that you don't hurt yourself. So we're going to add onto the bottom of the quiche our mushrooms. Goodness gracious, you could add mushrooms in actually, that'd probably be quite nice. But this is not mushrooms, this is onions. So we're going to add the onions in and get them all off of this spatula. There we go. And what we want to make sure is that the whole of the base has got some onions on it. Otherwise, again, you're going to find that somebody's portion of quiche is going to taste very different because it doesn't have any of the filling, and that would not be good. So we're just going to spread those out. And I want to make sure that I cover all of the pastry. Now it's a little bit easier to spread these out, I think, when the onions have been cooked, because they're a little bit softer, and so you can spread them out over the whole of the base. There we are. And then the next thing we're going to do is sprinkle on 1.5 cups of cheese. Now you don't need to sprinkle the whole lot on to begin with. We're going to save some to put on the top. But again, make sure that you spread it out so that it's all over the onions. And we don't have anybody left without any cheesy bits on their quiche. I know if I was the person that got the quiche without the onions or without the cheese, I'd probably be quite disappointed. So I'm making sure that I've spread it out. I can see most of my quiche has got some cheese and some onions in it. And then the fun bit begins, because what I've got to try to do now is get the egg mixture on without making a terrible, terrible mess. There we go. Some onions over there that have slightly escaped their cheesy covering. Brilliant. And now we've got this. So now you just need to go a little bit careful. What I tend to do is I just give it a little very, very gentle whisk as I'm pouring it over the top, so that I make sure it's all mixed. And what you want to make sure you do is you cover everything. All of the quiche needs some egg in it, otherwise it won't cook. And what I don't want to do is add too much so that it starts overflowing the edges. So I'm very, very close to the edge. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a gentle tap to make sure that the filling, the egg, goes right the way down through. Now it is a very, very gentle tap, because what I don't want to do is break the pastry. And then with the last little bit of cheese that you've got in your bowl, just very lightly sprinkle some of that over the top of the eggy mixture that you've just put on. And then that will help for it to go nice and brown when you cook it. So what we're looking for is probably maybe around 40 to 45 minutes that it's going to be in. That seems like a really long time, but obviously this is quite a thick eggy mixture, and you don't want a raw quiche when it's cooked. And there you have it. It is literally as simple as that. So I'm going to go and pop this in the oven now. I'm going to put it in, to start with, as always, I go a little bit safe just to make sure that it doesn't overcook. I'm going to put it in for about 35 minutes, and then I'm going to go back and check it and see what it looks like. If the middle, and we do our little dip test with the knife, you all know how to do that now. If the middle is cooked, I'll get it out, and if it isn't, so if the knife comes back out and it's a little bit gooey, then I know that it needs to go in for a little bit longer, and when it's done, I will come back to you. That's if I haven't eaten it already. See you in a minute. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. It's actually worked. I've made a quiche. Woo! I really hope you get a chance to do this too. I've just taken them out the oven because I'm actually going to take this over to the oven and show you what's happened. Sometimes we have slight cooking disasters, and I tend to have them quite a lot, as we all know. This is what they look like when they've come out. These are my two little mini ones. If you give them a pop on the top, obviously they're hot, so get your parents to do that. It's all cooked, it's not liquid at all inside. The most important thing now is that this gets a chance to cool down, because if it doesn't cool down, it's going to burn your mouth. But I'm just going to take you over this way so you can have a little look. I don't know if you can see that. As the computer all steamed up. Can you see this? Shall I pull it out a little bit? This is what can sometimes happen when you have slight cooking disasters. I have not been making sausages. This is where my quiche has leaked. So yes, my quiche has leaked all over the oven, but it's not a problem because I've got a little baking sheet down. So I'm just going to go and give that a wipe now. But there we go. Cheese and onion quiche. Yum, yum. Guess what I'm having for tea? Cheese and onion quiche. Have a fabulous time cooking. Please keep yourselves safe. Thank you so much to all of you who've watched all the cooking videos. I really hope you've enjoyed them. And I really, really hope you get a chance to try some of the recipes, especially over the summer holidays when we'll all have lots and lots of time to do lots of cooking and baking. Keep yourselves safe. There won't be a staff video this week, but there is a super special Year 6 video that's coming out. On Friday, I'll do my last story video, so you'll have something to take with you into the summer holidays. Keep yourselves safe. Miss you all.